Richard Beaven, COO of Brightside, and his presentation, which I know you're going to get much from, which is Workplace of the Future.
Hello everyone, I'm Richard Beaven. I'm the Group Chief Operating Officer at Brightside Insurance. We're a specialist insurance broking business and we have offices in Bristol and Torquay and Southampton. And I want to talk a little bit about the future of the workplace. I'm absolutely delighted to be asked and honoured to be able to share some of my thoughts with you today. We live in interesting times, as has been said. We are living through COVID and we're living through some of the most dramatic changes that we have seen in the workplace ever, and certainly in my career, which is nearly 40 years. My background has always been somehow or other involved in contact centres. I've worked in big banks, I've worked in insurance companies, I've worked in market data organisations, and in every case I've had the great pleasure of part of my role has been leading contact centres, and I love them. It's really part of my DNA. I created a new contact centre in Barclay Call years and years ago. I've opened contact centres in Manila and in Poland, and I've run call centres all the way around the world. So I love doing it. And I really love seeing the world of customers and the world of customers evolve. And I think at this moment in time in our history, we have reached a point where customer expectations have dramatically and radically changed. And I'll come on and talk about that. So let me share with you the agenda for what I want to cover today. So as I said, I want to talk about the future of the workplace, but I want to give you a little bit of my background and my history so that you know where I'm coming from. I want to talk about customers and customer expectations. I want to talk about, and I'm going to use the word employees. Now, it's not a modern word, I appreciate that, and we all talk about colleagues and other things, but I want to use this in the sense of the people that companies employ, and I'm going to talk a little bit about their expectations. I want to talk about the future of offices. What have we seen at Brightside? And my beliefs around the offices of the future are going to be very different from today. I want to talk about technology, how technology will play its part now and in the future. And I'll sum up with some closing remarks. So, who is Richard Beaven? Well, I have now just about completed 40 years in financial services. I have a very big birthday coming up this year. I'm 60, which is slightly terrifying. I have 4 amazing children. I'm a gay dad. I'm probably the most openly gay senior leader in insurance. My kids are absolutely amazing. I have a grandson who's now just over a year old, hence the tiny feet in the slide. And I am passionate about diversity and inclusion. I have been a trustee of Stonewall, the UK's leading LGBT organisation, and that was a huge pleasure. I have also set up something called the LGBT Insurance Network in the city, because frankly insurance has been a bit of a backwater where it comes to diversity and inclusion, and I want to make a difference to make sure that we respect and value people of difference, and that's been very much part of me in terms of the way I think and the way I think about leadership. But as I said, all of my years in financial services and extensive experience of running contact centres. Outside of work, what do I love? I love to travel. It's been I've been able to do that through some of the roles that I've done, but also outside of work. If I can't get to Lana Beach somewhere nice or go and visit somewhere, whether it be Japan or whether it be South Africa or in Europe, that's what I absolutely love to do when I'm not at work. Okay, so let's talk about customers. I guess if we are very honest and look at ourselves hard at the moment, we have let our customers down. We've gone into a pandemic a year ago, and I don't know about you, but if you've tried to call a utility company, a bank, your internet provider, and tried to get hold of them on the phone, even now some are failing to support their customers. We kind of need to look at ourselves and say, we've spent hours looking at plans, recovery plans, business disaster plans, whatever they happen to be called, and convincing ourselves that we were going to be fine. But yet along comes a pandemic, which maybe we hadn't thought about, or maybe we had and not thought about it robustly enough. And we simply failed to deliver for our customers. We failed to answer the phone when they call us. And what was even worse is that some firms were forcing customers to use channels that they've never used before. I mean, have you tried phoning your bank when they say, sorry, we can't answer the phone, please go to www. whatever it happens to be, and then the phone goes dead? Or even worse, I'm sorry, we're really busy right now, we can't answer your call, try again later, click. And that has been the experience for many, many customers, and it's totally unacceptable. But what it has done is force customers to try out new channels. It's forced them to suddenly realize that, you know what, you can do things online. It is actually fairly straightforward. And actually, most of the time, it's good. If I don't need to speak to someone and I can do it myself. And what I think we've seen in the last year particularly has been a complete transformation of the way customers think about getting transactions done. So they're not thinking, well, I must phone someone. They're thinking, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can use an online journey. Maybe I can try doing that myself. Maybe I don't need to visit my bank anymore. And I think whether you're 18 or 80, we've seen the most radical transformation. So for those of us in business, need to think about what the customers now expect. What do they really, really want from us? And if we think about the contact centers that we've built and we run, a lot of them are there because we want the customer to do something. Please call us because renewing your policy needs to speak to you, whatever it may be. And actually, we are wasting the customer's time, frankly. We're saying, you call us. What we need to rethink is, what is the real customer expectation here? And I think at the heart of this is customers are very time poor and they want things to be as easy as it can possibly be. So we need to look at our processes and say, why are we making customers do this? Can we eliminate it? Can we stop it? Can we redesign it so the customer doesn't need to call us? So I believe that ease is one of the simplest things that we need to deliver to our customers, but in fact, it's one of the hardest things to do because it needs re-engineering. Secondly, customers want choice. And I think customers expect now more choice than they ever had before. So businesses that are just engineered around call centers only, without giving customers mobile, without giving customers ways of transacting on the web, means they don't have the choice that they want. And there's absolutely empirical evidence that customers want that choice, and they want that choice 24/7 by 365. So when I want to do business. So that's the other factor. Are we going to be opening call centers 24/7 by 365? Probably not. But to answer what the customer's requirement is, we need to think about ways in which we can use multiple different channels for customers to be able to access our services and get help when they need it. There's a great temptation in this new digital world, though, for us to go, you know what, all we ever need to do is build this really smart online business and the customers will love it and it'll be absolutely fine and we don't need to build a call center. Well, in the very early days of Monzo Bank, their idea was that we don't need a call center because actually we're going to make it so slick and we're going to make it so simple that we don't need to speak to customers and therefore we don't need a call center. And we'll do it through web chat and we'll do all these other very modern things. Guess what? Monzo Bank now has a call center. Why is that? Because there are times in customers' lives when they need help and they need expertise. So if you think about my business, while I'm selling home insurance, what we know from talking to customers is if they buy insurance for home online, they do it and it's very straightforward and it's very easy often, but there are lots of questions. And some of those questions are a bit tricky, like, do you live within 400 meters of a water course? What does that mean? Well, a river or the sea. Well, I don't know whether I'm 400 meters or not. Have I answered the question correctly? Do you have a 5-litre lever mortise lock on your front door? Well, I don't know, and most people don't know where you can go and check. But it's those sorts of things. And it leaves the customer buying but feeling apprehensive. And what customers want is to be able to get some expert help. That expert help doesn't necessarily need to come from a human interaction, but it probably needs someone that they can interact with. Could be a chatbot if you can make that work, and I'll come on and talk about that, but often you need some expertise. And there are particular times in customers' lives when absolutely they want to speak to somebody. And often that is really difficult things like, I don't have the money, I can't afford things, but my insurance policy is due. I have a bereavement in the family. That is really hard to deal with, that ultra emotional thing that a customer is facing, and often they want to speak to somebody. Two other points on customers. One is, if you want me to speak to you, you better make sure that transaction that I'm giving you my time for is value added for me. Why do I need to give you my time to buy your thing? And if it's not value adding, then it's not going to be satisfying for the customer. And if you read around the subject of ease, and there's lots written about this, the good old days were, make your call center people, encourage your customers to have a nice day and be happy and smiley and all that sort of stuff, with a belief that if you gave them a great contact center experience, then the customers would stay with you and be more loyal. Well, sadly, that is empirically not true, because many of the reasons that customers are having to speak to our contact centers is that we are forcing them to do it. So it doesn't matter how you say have a nice day or all those sort of things. Of course you need to be respectful and thoughtful, but it's not going to drive loyalty. What will drive loyalty is the easiest possible route for our customers to be able to buy, to renew, and to engage with us. And the last point I want to make about customers is customers, and particularly insurance businesses, we tend to talk about policy holders, and we tend to talk about policy numbers. And we tend to answer the phone by saying, hello, can you give me your policy number? Well, that's not knowing me, is it? It's not very satisfying. How about, hello, could we, what's your name? That would be a really good start. So we have a lot to do, not only to help people who sit in call centers behave like normal human beings and not like automatons, but also to make sure that we are providing our agents with really useful and relevant information so that they genuinely know me. And what do I mean? It's not that hard, but it's things like, did you know that I called yesterday? Some systems do that, some don't. And it's really irritating for a customer having to explain, I called you yesterday, you've got no record of that. Well, you may know that there was a call, but you don't have any content. Or there's been a marketing email sent out and nobody knows that's happened. That means you don't know me, I'm just a number and I'm just doing my transactional job. What the customer expects is you truly know me, know who I am, and know the interactions that I have had with your firm. And that is going to get ever more important, and that's absolutely the heart of customer expectation. So for me, ease and choice, expertise, value add, and know me are at the heart of what our customers are going to probably want now, but certainly are going to want in the future. So having talked about customers, what is it that our employees want and are thinking about in terms of the future? Well, we're in a very unusual time in that we have 5 generations of people in the current workforce. So it's not just this homogeneous mass of people sort of around the same age. We have got people in my own company. We have someone who is 80 years old, and we've got people right at the other end of the scale. 5 generations in the current workforce. And obviously the next generation is beginning to come through. So you've got a generation of people that didn't grow up in a digital environment. They're used to hierarchical leadership. They're used to the way in which things were done. And you've got a generation coming in where their whole life has been digital. And yet we're taking them back into a somewhat analog world where we're expecting them to work. And then for our leaders, we're saying, just go figure. So just go figure how you manage this. So we do all this electronic communication methods and tools and stuff like that. That will appeal to some, it won't appeal for others. So my first point is, I think there is a real challenge on leaders to think about how do you lead in a multi-generational environment, because people want different things. I think secondly, that we used to talk about work-life balance, and therefore somehow or another you managed to balance what you did when you were at home with what you do at work. Well, I don't know about all of you, but if that was something that was an objective of mine in my career, I failed miserably for the last 40 years. I've never achieved a good work-life balance. But I think our expectations of people coming through the current generation are looking for something that I tend to like to talk about in terms of work-life blend. So actually, how do I blend the things that I want to do in my personal life with what I want to do in terms of work? And you know what? Increasingly, the way in which we think about work, i.e. we have contracts of employment that are typically fairly fixed. We have particular thoughts about when people work, where people work. That does not suit a generation of people who are going to say, I want to do different things. And I think that will be increasingly unsatisfying if we as businesses are more rigid about the way in which we're expecting people to work, or as rigid as we have been when they're looking for this more of a work-life blend. So very important to be thinking about that. I don't have the answers, but I think that's a big expectation of even current employees and let alone future ones. The next thing is about flexibility. If I've learned one thing from working from home, the thing that our colleagues have enjoyed most is greater flexibility, because they're not having to do the commute. They're not having to get up and fight their way through traffic. None of our offices were near to major transport links, so everyone had to drive. And if you don't know, Bristol and Southampton and Torquay can be pretty busy for traffic. So that's been tricky. But what's also happened is been talking to some colleagues about how their home life has changed. And one of my colleagues, who will remain nameless, she's a very senior colleague. She's absolutely fantastic. And she said to me one day, she said, you know what? I have never, ever in my life been home in time for my children's bath time. My husband has always done this. And she said, the best thing about being at lockdown is I'm seeing my children so much more than I would have done. And I'm seeing those magical, important moments in their lives. And I don't want to miss that again. I am not going, if that's possible, I want to stay working from home. And she does a role that's perfectly well working from home. She's brilliant. And why would I force her to go back to an office that she doesn't want to go to? She wants to have that flexibility. That's fine by me. I don't care where people work, and I'll come on and talk about that. But this expectation of flexibility for me is really important, and one that we need to think about as organisations as how do we provide that? And I don't mean just the typical, okay, well, we can give you some time off here and loo days and very traditional things. I mean a much deeper and broader thinking about flexibility. The next thing I think our future and indeed current colleagues want is purposeful work. And what do I mean by that? That people want now to connect what they do with the world. Why is this important for the world? Why do I make a difference? And actually, surprisingly easy in insurance when you talk about what customers get covered for and when things go wrong. What does it do to their families when things go wrong? When your house floods, when you have a car accident, heaven forbid something even worse happens and that insurance protects you. Well, that is purposeful work. But what we've got to do is work much harder to try and connect the purpose of the work that we do to colleagues to make sure that they understand that. And that links to another point, which is employees do not want to work in organisations that don't have great values, particularly when it comes to corporate and social responsibility. And I know that's a bit of an old-fashioned term and there's much more modern ones, but what does that mean is that we are part of the communities in which we work and that we respect the environment of which we use its resources. And I think organisations that don't understand that and don't get that will be less attractive to future employees. Employees want to hear about what are we doing to be carbon neutral. And as for example, what we did last year, because we've saved lots and lots of travel time and miles, we worked it out that as a business, we would have travelled 2 million driven miles every year. And we haven't done any in the last 12 months. So we worked out that that was the equivalent of 17,000 trees. So we bought 17,000 trees. And all of our employees can see this and they can add to it if they want to. And if we have charity days, we can plant more trees. And people loved it. And that's what I mean about the fact that there is more to work than just coming in and sitting with your headphones and being nice to customers. Expectation is something much broader than that in the minds of our employees. And then we have to take responsibility for diversity and inclusion even more seriously. We've seen the Black Lives Matter movement. We've seen real challenges in getting senior women on boards, particularly in the insurance industry. And I could go on and on. My particular focus, as I said, has been on LGBT, but frankly, when I look at the stats across almost all of our businesses, we know we could and we should do better. And we need to stop paying lip service to some of it and actually do something about it. It is not good enough just to say, oh, well, we've got policies where of course we wouldn't be racist and of course we wouldn't be misogynistic and all of our policies protect us from that. But then go and ask what the real lived experience is for colleagues. How is it for them? Do they believe that? Do they see that in their everyday lives? Yeah, it's great that the CEO and COO, bang on about this stuff, but you know what? I'm getting homophobic abuse from my team leader. How do I deal with that? So I'm hearing this stuff from the top, but my daily lived experience is an awful one, and that's the one that will colour my flavour, my feeling, if you like, about any business. So if we are not getting really focused on making sure that we're seen as inclusive businesses, where there's a pure meritocracy that everyone has the right to get on, we have absolutely clear recruitment processes to make sure that we bring in diverse and inclusive candidates, then we're going to fail because people will be looking for that. And in case anyone still doubts, why is this a good thing for business? Go and look at the data. Have a look at the businesses that are proven to be more inclusive and more diverse in terms of the people they hire. There is empirical evidence that they perform better than those that are by and largely run by straight white men. So I hate the fact we still have to keep talking about the business case for diversity, but it's there. But actually for me, it's about a war on talent. We need the best talented people we can bring into our businesses. And if you don't have very clear, safe and inclusive environment, then people won't come. So your business will fail because you just can't get hold of the best talent. So I want to come on and talk about the future of offices. We've had the most forced radical shift in office working in a lifetime. COVID-19 has caused us to completely rethink what we're doing. And I want to share a little bit about my experience of Brightside. But you know what? I think this is the moment where we have to fundamentally rethink why offices. We've used offices for years and years and years and assumed that is the place. We contract people to offices as our natural thing to do. But actually, I still look at a lot of offices where we have call centres and think to myself, you know what? Someone who comes in the morning, has had a fairly long drive through traffic, puts on a headphone, spends all day talking to customers and lots of metrics and lots of measurement, finishes and then goes and then rinses and repeats. Is that really satisfying work? Is that what people really want to do? When I look at some turnover figures for contact centres, they're absolutely awful. And therefore it suggests to me maybe that contact centres aren't particularly satisfying. And I wonder whether that is linked to the office environment, that actually the office isn't particularly satisfying. The office environment isn't the one that we all pretend it is. Oh, we kind of love it and it's all been painted quite nicely. But actually, it's not the thing that we think it is. And we need to reflect and rethink about that. So what did we do? A year ago, just about, we decided that we wanted to keep our people safe. And the only way we thought we could do that was to close the offices and have 500 people working from home. And we set ourselves a challenge of 6 weeks to do that. We didn't know whether we could, but we gave it a go. And I won't bore you with all the details, but we managed to set up 500 people working from home, of which nearly 300 were frontline contact centre folks. So what has our experience been? Well, it's been remarkable. One is we were able to hit our service level agreements right out the bat. People, as soon as the system worked, people logged in from home, and we were able to deliver for our customers. So I'm really proud of that. Secondly, I've just looked at the annual stats for several things, our turnover and our sickness levels. Our turnover is the lowest we've ever had in Brightside in recorded memory. And our sickness levels is the lowest we've ever seen. It's not just the absolute level of sickness. What we've seen is all those little pockets of sickness that you and I know we have to manage all the time, the habitual things where people don't turn up. And that has been just remarkable to see the improvement in that over time. And then there's lots of discussions with our colleagues about how they're feeling. And There's clearly been a cadre of people for whom working from home has been very difficult. Working from home when your kids aren't at school, extremely difficult. Working from home when you're living in a tiny little bedsit flat, with you, maybe a partner, all crammed in there, trying to work, where you don't have the right setup, extremely hard. And therefore, we've had people say, this isn't for me, unless we're going to open offices, that's not what I want. But the vast majority of our people have said, this is working for me. I like the flexibility. I like the fact I don't have to do the drive, fight for the car parking space, and be able to stop work at lunchtime, go and have a walk, go and get some fresh air, come back in. Now, yes, you could have done that in the offices, but actually people are doing it in their familiar environments, knowing where the park is, walking around the block, going to the supermarket, whatever, now that they can do that easily, that they are working from home. So in our experience and our learnings, this has been something that we are very keen on. So we are now talking about work from anywhere, because that's what we generally want our colleagues to be able to do. We don't, we've said to our colleagues that we don't expect to return to offices as they were and people working permanently in offices. Our model is proposed to be working from anywhere. So what do we mean by that? Because a lot of people talk about working from home, but if your home isn't suitable, then you can work in someone else's home, your grandmother's, your parents', wherever it may be. You can work with a colleague. As long as it's safe for our customers and our customer data and safe for our colleagues, then we are comfortable that you can work from anywhere. We've had people move from one end of the country to the other. I was talking on a coffee conversation chat the other day with one of my team, and unbeknown to me, she had moved from Devon to Manchester, and I had absolutely no idea. And it doesn't matter. She performed in Devon, she performs in Manchester, but for her personal reasons, being in Manchester was where she wanted to be. I have no problem with that. We had one of our team whose mother was very poorly and unfortunately wasn't going to make it, and she was in Italy. And whilst we can't really have people permanently working, outside of the UK because of all the complications of that, we can do it temporarily. So we help this lady take a kit and go to Italy and support her dying mum in the moments that mattered, but was able to work, because obviously she said, I don't want to be sitting by her bedside 24/7, not in my home. Are you okay if I work? She wanted it, because we would have given her compassionate leave, of course, but she found that ability to work, and she is wonderful, gave her something as well, and therefore it worked. So again, this ultimate flexibility that we are trying to create. Will we have no offices? No, we do believe that we need to have a hub. We want somewhere, we don't know where it's going to be, that is a coming together place for some of our people some of the time. It will be a place for collaboration. So when we want to kick off projects, work together on an idea, all that sort of stuff, we think that is best done bringing people together in a collaborative way, not over Teams. We also think for induction in particular, we can do lots and lots of training over Teams, and we have done, and we've recruited people and inducted them very successfully working from home. But we think in terms of inculcation to our culture, meeting people, meeting colleagues, being part of Brightside, it's important that we do that in a particular location. And therefore we want to have training and development space so that we can do that. So again, not a space for people to work in per se, people to collaborate, external meetings, all those sorts of things. We're going to create a hub where we will do that. So that's our philosophy, but I guess we need to think hard about what's missing in a working from home environment. So there are things that people miss, and we've got to try and sort out. A lot of people get their knowledge from asking the person sitting next to them, how do I do X? And that's harder working from home. So without a decent knowledge management tool, that's hard. So again, technology, I'll come on to, but technology plays its part in making working from home work. It's easy to be a bit lonely working from home. And if you don't have camera on sessions, when you're on Teams calls, for example, you don't see your colleagues. So we've been really insistent that when we have our get-togethers, when we have our team meetings, everyone has their cameras on so that they can see each other and they can remember what colleagues look like. And that's made a huge difference, because otherwise you're just on telephone conference calls all the time and you miss that social interaction. So we've done that. Clearly, you need to make the environment in which people are working, safe from a health and safety point of view, but also making sure that people do sit comfortably and don't do silly things like try and rest their laptops on windowsills and other things I've heard about, which of course is very bad for posture. So again, you need to think about that. And I guess the final point about this is people's mental welfare is absolutely critical to think about at all times, but in particular when we're in a working from home environment. We can't see people as much as we used to. People may be struggling and suffering. So we've done a lot of work around creating mental health first aiders. We've got obviously trained lots of managers. We've got a super team of people within our HR team who are trained specifically to help. And we make it really clear to our colleagues that there is help for them, and it is used a lot, and we know it's there, and that's very important for us and something that has to be in place. It should be in place in offices, but it's critical that it is in place in the future working from home model. So my expectation is that there won't be a rush back to offices. I think this has allowed a lot of businesses to take stock and think, was that a satisfying thing or not? And if I talk to people like Beaven, for example, a huge insurance company, massive offices in London and Norwich and other places, they have already said they are not going back to the offices as they did. They're going to create hubs in the idea that I've just talked about, and they're not going to reopen their offices. There are tech companies who have already articulated that they don't expect to be back until the end of 2022, which probably means they don't expect to be back. So I think this is going to fundamentally change the way we work. I mean, for example, take London, where I am now. This is my home. London is dead. And I think what a lot of people have realised is that the commute into London in particular is very hard. With thousands of you at the same time, crammed on tube trains, people are going to find that unsafe and say, I don't want to do that anymore. So if you want employees, then you've got to find ways of making and getting over that barrier of transport and travel. And that will impact the future, in my view, the future of offices. So for me, I think it will be much less people working in offices, much more flexible working at home. Some organisations are trying to do a blend because they're trying to please everybody. And we looked at this really hard. But what happens in a blend is, of course, you then have to say, right, 2 days in, 3 days out, whatever it may be. And what our colleagues are saying they're missing is getting together as a team. If you blend work and you blend people's time in the offices and out of the office, what happens is you never meet as a team because it's logistically and statistically impossible. So what you think you're giving to your employees, you're not, because they will not meet as a team back in the office necessarily. So be very careful what you wish for. Our view was it's very complicated to do. It doesn't achieve the outcomes that we want. So we've gone for the working from anywhere coupled with a hub as our potential new operating model. So let's touch on technology. I'm not going to dwell on this very much, but I think there are a few things that we all should be thinking about. Our business models are going to be broken or be successful on the basis of how we use data to power our businesses. Data is now the currency of all of our businesses. How we use our data, how we understand our customers, how do we serve them is all about data and analytics. And if I think about what I've just said about offices and leadership and think about the leaders of the future, for me, the best leaders are going to be those that use data and use technology and have a great empathy with people, and they blend those two things together. That's my expectation of what great future leaders are going to be about. Empirical data use, but empathetic leadership for how you lead people. That's my expectation. What we've seen in terms of working from home is that if I look at my leadership team as a cadre, people have fallen into different camps. There are those that managed by coercion or managed by being in the office, and therefore they could see what was going on. They could see their people, they could talk to them, and basically didn't use a lot of data. They got it in some sort of, immersed in it, and therefore that's how they led, and their people, liked their leader and they responded to them, and that's what they did. They didn't need to look at a lot of data to understand what is going on. At the other end of the scale, you have people that spent all of their time on data, and probably weren't the most engaging of leaders, because it was all about the data, and the data tells me all my answers, and that's what I need to do. For me, the emerging best leaders are those that really get it around, we run our business through data and understanding data, but as I said, empathize with people and are great leaders of teams and individuals. They are great coaches, but they use the data as the evidence of how can we be a bit better. So that's the first thing. The second thing is around I don't know about you, but I probably get 10 different requests a day from technology businesses, consultancy firms to sell me AI, chatbots, you name it. This is the future of the business, and on and on and on it goes, with a view that that is the answer. I don't believe that technology in any single component is the answer. What I think we need to do, and I've used the word blend a few times today, is to think about how technology can provide the answer for the customer. What is it that customer wants? Does the customer want all this stuff, or is it just a solution looking for a problem? So start with the customer, think about what they want, then think about how many of the things that we do we don't need to do, and take that out of your process, and then look at what's left. And then say, how much of that then needs a face-to-face interaction? You need to speak to somebody, you need expertise. How much of it can be done with some guided assistance? So a web chatbot, guided assistance. So they help get customers through a web journey where they get a bit stuck, because everyone does. Everyone doesn't quite understand how to do it, or they have a question, and it's perfectly fine to use that sort of technology to drive and empower your customer experience. And that's what this is all about. So for me, it's really important that you don't start with technology and try and find a home. You start thinking about, what is the problem we're trying to solve? How can we crack it in different ways? And then look at how technology can help once you've done that. The other thing is, what can technology do to help our colleagues, for example, who are working from home? What are some of the things they miss in terms of the day? So I think about some of our new business teams. In the office during the day, you used to have lots of fun, you used to have little spot prizes and what have you to motivate folks through the day. And that was one of the characteristics of particularly new business teams in insurance, in offices, but that's gone away. So what we're experimenting with and rolling out over the next few weeks is gamification technology. Now, if you'd asked me, months ago, what on earth is this? I would have said, I have no idea what you're talking about. But now I've got a bit of a sense of it. And basically, we've created the fun of the office through using technology so that we can create leaderboards, fun, prizes, rewards, all that sort of stuff, but driven through technology. So we're linking up our individual expectations of individuals and teams into this new tool. And we've linked that up then to objectives and then prizes and all sorts of things. And we can run it for a half an hour to a day to a month, whatever you choose to do in terms of incentivization of your folks. We haven't rolled it out yet. It will roll out in the next couple of weeks. But for me, it just shows that if you think hard and look out there hard, somewhere there is a solution to some of the things we're talking about. And for me, I love finding things like that. I'm also a great experimenter. So when it comes to technology, experiment, fail fast, do some stuff, let it go, and stop moaning over the fact that it didn't work. It doesn't matter. I'd rather 8 things didn't work and 2 things did, because then you're experimenting and trying. And the gamification tool I've just told you about is something that I think it's a great experiment. We'll give it a go. The other thing we've been starting to look at is, how can technology help learning and development? And I don't know whether you've seen virtual reality learning and development, but my goodness me, if you haven't, go have a look. This is a really interactive way of starting to think about, how do you develop colleagues? How do people learn? And I've only scratched the surface of this. Unfortunately, I don't wear virtual reality very well. It makes me feel very ill. So I'm not the best advocate of it, but only because it doesn't necessarily work for me. But the power of it is utterly amazing. So again, when we're thinking about people who are still writing stuff for classrooms, That's gone. Let's be really clear, that's gone. But what's the new classroom of the future? You know what? It might be virtual reality. So again, how do we blend what we're trying to do? How do we develop our people? And what technology is there to do it? I think virtual reality will have a really important place in the cadre of things that we will do to help our people learn and develop. I hope I haven't lived up to Alfred Hitchcock's always make the audience suffer as much as possible. I hope you found some of the things that I said useful. I think we are at a moment in time where if you are not thinking about radical change, you have to wonder, is your business going to be set up for a successful future? We have a unique moment in time, unfortunately driven partly by this global pandemic, to make significant changes to the way we serve our customers, to stop saying our customers just want to call us and actually really think about what do customers want? How can we deliver better for them? What is the place within which telephony and human interaction works? I do not believe that in the future there will be a fully automated everything. I believe that there will be a blend of technology-driven solutions and human enabled solutions, and that's what our customers' expectation will be. Will it be forever? Don't know, but will it be for the rest of my working lifetime and many of yours? I suspect it will be. So I'm really excited about the future, and I really think we've got a real opportunity in contact centres to be part of that future, drive the future, because we are where the rubber hits the road for our customers. And if you're not thinking about this stuff now, again, it's going to be hard to recruit. It's going to be hard to get the best people that you want in your businesses. So maybe reflect on some of the things I've said and ask yourself the challenging question is, are we addressing this? Are we doing something about this? And maybe if you're not, ask yourself why. Thank you very much indeed for listening. I've really enjoyed spending some time with you today.